we're live.
Thanks. Welcome to Family 360. I'm Allison Olson. Let's just go around and introduce our names.
I'm Emily Buffington.
I'm Tiffany Jennings.
And I'm Melanie Judd.
Okay. For today's discussion, we were supposed to talk about the counseling session and how we can incorporate that in the article that we read. The first question I wanted to kind of ask is, in that counseling session, how was he able to reframe and relabel the individual's comments? What are some things that he did to reframe and relabel? Can you give me some examples?
I think he did a really good job of when he'd approach something with one of the family members, and they would say something that could potentially be interpreted as like abrupt or hurtful or something, and he would rephrase it to make sure he understood and to make it so that the other family members were aware of what was happening so that they could understand that it's not necessarily like a hurtful thing.
Yeah,
Sorry. I like that he also, because it diffused because there were a few times where they said things and I thought, she's going to get mad or whatever, but he did a really good job of steering that into her tender feelings, or, that it was really emotion. And I thought he did a really good job of restating things in his own words to make sure that he was understanding, correctly what they were trying to say.
Yeah. Well, and I kind of like with the sister, she, for an example, when the sister, the boy thought she was being really angry, like she was picking on and teasing him, but really the counselor was able to say, well, you must have been really worried, or you must really love your brother. So it's kind of like he was trying to help the boy understand that all these, what appeared to be negative words that were coming from families, he was redirecting the words to say, these are ways that your family shows love. It's not probably the right way. You need to have a better communication, but this is what they're really trying to say. And when you're doing what you're doing, you're really trying to say, this kind of communication hurts me. I need something a little bit more positive. And I loved how he did that. How about you, Emily?
Actually, that's exactly what I was going to say. I thought he was really good at being positive about bringing out their love for each other and that they care for each other, and that's kind of the bulk of what their issues are, is that it's because they care for each other and love for each other. He kept it positive where they could all relate to it and use that love to kind of draw the family back together.
Yeah, I really like that. Identify, affirming, and build family strengths. Let me think of one of the questions. What were some other things from that counseling session that kind of stood out to you from the beginning? What were some of the things that the counselor did that made them feel comfortable?
I thought he was really positive, and with the boy, with Jimmy, my first instinct when they were talking about he's 18 years old, he graduated, and he does nothing, was in my head, your first thing is you want to chastise him or say, figure your life out, get going, and he never did. He just talked to him about skateboarding, and wow, that's amazing that you can do that, and just found ways to build up each member of the family. He found something that he could connect with them, or that he pretend he clearly couldn't skate, but he showed interest in the things they were interested in, and I think that helped them to feel more confident talking to him and more confident about themselves, in the discussion.
Okay. Anyone else?
I don't understand the question. Sorry, what was it?
Well, let me see. I'm just looking at the highlights. How did he? Just tell me at the beginning, what are some things that stood out to you in the discussion? What did he do? Like for me, go ahead, Emily.
I like that he got to know all of them and kind of was able to talk to each of them on a personal level. I did notice, though, like that I felt like maybe there was a couple things that maybe it's because it was recorded, I felt like it was a little bit recited. It felt a little bit, I don't know, a little bit unpersonal. Even if it was being personal, it was kind of like, let's get through this. And so I think that part of that's just being recorded.
You feel like it was a little contrived? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Like the son mentioned a couple times that the father wasn't ever home, and that was one thing that he never really like talked about. That he never really asked, like, well, he never addressed that issue. So that was one thing that I thought could have been addressed.
I wonder if that's where further counseling will come in for that family.
Yeah.
They'll address more of that issue.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting when they came in, because that's probably the first thing that's kind of hard for a counselor. Where do you start? You know, I liked how, like what you guys all said, he got to know them, and instead of getting right to the issue, he kind of got a little bit of their background. Tell me a little bit about your background. Tell me what you do. So he was able to make that connection with them, like you guys mentioned. But then I noticed throughout the counseling session, I mean, he has a great memory. Like, he's really, really active listening, because he was able to bring back things that he told them at the beginning of the discussion, like, you probably missed your camping trips, or, you know, some other things when he talked to the father, you know, your job, you know, he was able to take things from that first, I think it was like the first 3 or 4 minutes, he was able to utilize a little bit of that background for that family so he could really help them.
Yeah.
That's what I really noticed.
I agree with you, Allison, and I think one thing, I mean, we just saw one therapy session, but I think for a therapist, that's something that it has to be like worked on, because you know, you're talking to so many people over the course of several weeks that, you know, in time, I'm sure that it's easy for people's stories and backgrounds to get jumbled together. And that was the first time you met them, so it was all new information. But, you know, you don't want to be reading notes about this family to remind yourself. And so I think that's a gift. Like, that's something that you have to work on to be able to get to know them. And the only way you can do that is if you really care about them, to be able to remember what their needs were, what their, you know, what they have said before. So I agree. I think that's really good.
Oh, that was good. How did he help them work as a team?
I think he just did a great job at helping them communicate, because I think that was kind of their biggest issue, is they were just fighting, and he helped kind of communicate, like, well, why are you fighting? It, you know, because you care about each other, and just help them be clear with their feelings and just communicate.
How about you, Mel?
Oh, sorry. I think we might have lost her.
Oh, we did?
She sent something, sorry guys, I'll be back, but
I think that's from before.
so I'm wondering if it's being recorded.
It is recorded. It is live.
Okay.
On
So
the computer.
okay. So it's probably still recording.
Yes.
I thought that he, you know, I don't know if this was really his intent, but the way he encouraged the nonverbal communication too, how he had them switch spots. At first I thought that was kind of funny, and then I watched the mom and dad, and he kept reaching over and grabbing her hand, and I thought, you know, when you're talking about things that are stressful, and you know, he's saying that he thinks his wife overreacts and gets too upset, but he can reach over and grab her hand while he says it. I think that's huge, like for them to be able to express that tenderness through touch while they're talking about something very stressful. And as I watched it, I thought that became kind of tender and helped, I don't know, it helped me see that they do still love each other and care about each other. If they didn't, he wouldn't have reached over and grabbed her hand like that. And I think the therapist could probably read into some of their nonverbal communication. When he moved the daughter to the other seat, did you see she started turning and kind of smiling at the brother? Like when he would say something goofy, she would kind of smirk at the brother. And I thought I don't know if he did it on purpose, but I thought it was effective for them to be able to, he could see their nonverbal communication better, I think.
And it probably made it a little more, less like it informal for them, you know, to be.
Right. Yeah. A little more comfortable, I think, for them.
That's great. How about you, Melanie?
Sorry, could you repeat the question? I got to squeeze the baby.
How were they able to work together as a team?
One more time.
How were they able to work together as a team?
I think that they were able to really, after they listened to one another and they had their communication facilitated better with the counselor, I think they did a great job of recognizing what everyone was feeling and contributing.
Here's kind of another question that just kind of came to my mind. You know, when you consider everything, all the different models that we've learned, and case studies use, and how we always put, the different models that we use for the case studies. Did you witness any case studies? Not case studies, any models that he used in his counseling session?
Yeah, I think he identified the problem, which, like the 86 model, that's like the first step. Everybody can sit down. I think identifying the problem and then kind of helping them adjust.
And
One thing I kind of noticed was that the next session he said, because he kind of brought up a little bit about people's faith and he kind of wanted to get a feel for them. But I wonder if he will bring in some, I wonder what models he'll bring into the next meeting. That's kind of something I was curious about. If he would bring in in a non-religious way. I don't know how you would do that, the counseling with counsels, because for me, I felt like that is what has really helped our family with a lot of problems that sometimes come up in families. I felt that. But I wonder what other methods he would use.
Well, there was a Christus on his desk. I'm guessing, he's an family services guy, so he probably will get more into, he's sort of not in a formal counsel with your counsel's family counsel, but, he encouraged them to go on a date night, and he encouraged the brother and sister to go get a soda. I think that's, in a way, can be viewed as like a family counsel. It's not a family, you know what I mean, but they encourage them to work on their individual relationships first. I think is a form of that, and I would guess that as they work with him that would become something, it's like baby steps. You can't throw too much at him at once. But I thought that was sort of a way that he kind of started that ball rolling. They're not going to sit down and have a very effective family counsel until they rebuild some of the relationships that have kind of dissolved over the last little while.
And I think that he can definitely bring in the family counsels. It looks like he was an LDS counselor and probably an LDS family, but I think you could definitely bring in family counsel without making it religious. You don't have to give the example of the first presidency. You can just say, you should maybe take time to meet together as a family, and these are some elements that would be helpful. Make sure that you are making it a safe place for everyone and expressing love and appreciation before you start it. Like, it doesn't have to be a religious thing. You can just take the Quorum of the 12 and presidency out of it and just still apply the basic principles.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Say, like he said, your family will be the best to know what's best for you. Your family needs to come up with this. You guys know each other well. You know each other intimately. You'll know the best solution to your problem. Like, kind of leading them towards working towards it, their own counsels.
Okay. I love that. And actually, I think the counselor is actually one of the professors at BYU Idaho.
Oh, really?
Yeah. How was he able to adopt a positive, future-oriented focus for this family?
Wait, can you repeat that?
Yeah, how was he able to adopt a positive, future-oriented focus? What are some things that he did for this family?
I think I think one thing that I really appreciated about what he did is he reiterated through the whole session how much they loved each other, and sort of in the beginning, again, like some nonverbal communication. The daughter, the first time he said it to the daughter, she kind of rolled her eyes like a teenager would, like whatever. And by the end, because he said it over and over and talked about how much she loved her brother, he helped them, I think, realize that they really do care about each other. And maybe they had let some of these negative feelings surface, but by the end, I thought her attitude towards the brother was very different, and I think by doing that, he helped them see that they do care about each other and they do want to work it out. Even the boy, his physical demeanor changed. I felt like his attitude was so much better at the end than it was when they went in, and I think he did that by helping them recognize that there is still a lot of love in their family, even though there's been a lot of arguing and yelling, that deep down inside they still really care about each other.
Well, and kind of what I saw was a little bit of that, when you said that, Tiffany, it kind of reminds me of the mood log. Instead of writing down, he kind of had it in an open forum. He kind of helped them to change their negative way of thinking into a more positive way of thinking, and gave them more. I think when you switch something from negative to positive, you're going to produce more hope. in someone. And just like you mentioned, I think I think he kind of used the mood log with
Maybe
when you're talking,
informal way. Yeah.
yeah, he kind of got rid of the faulty thing. Well, I'm trying to think I wonder what some of the negative thinking that the family had. What were some of the negative thinking that they had? I think kind of catastrophic in one aspect because they just assumed that Jimmy was doing drugs. They thought the worst of him, and I think
Yeah,
they were,
I think too. Jimmy, felt like he was leaving because the family didn't care about him, and I'm
yeah,
sure the family didn't see that. They thought he was leaving because he didn't want to be with them. I thought that was such a breakthrough moment. They kind of realized,
yeah.
again, it was all done because they do care about each other so much that's why it hurts so much.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what was kind of interesting is here they really thought he was doing drug, but really it was a natural process of growth. You know, I really don't think he was lying about the drugs because his body language. I don't know. Did his body language show that he was lying? Because I didn't sense that.
Well, and he brought it up, and I don't think he would have brought it up if. I mean, it's hard to imagine that a kid's staying out until 3 o'clock in the morning with kids who party, and he's not. So I would have a hard time believing he hasn't tried something or experimented with something. But I do think that he's still a good kid and not, maybe not partying as much as they think he is, or to the extent that they think he is, because he's the one who initiated that. The therapist never asked him, are you doing this? He volunteered that information. I don't think he would have if he was feeling really guilty or feeling like he was super involved in that. So.
And it would be really hard, honestly, if I were him and I wasn't doing anything, but I told my family I wasn't doing anything, but they're all saying, but you are, because you're
Oh
looking
yeah.
for that.
And no wonder he shuts down.
He did. Actually, I'm not sure if it's in this class, but it was in my marriage class that when you criticize and condemn, you start feeling flooded and you do shut down. And I found that the way it really comes down with communication. I think that's what this counseling is all about, is teaching you how to communicate openly and more properly, because you're kind of labeling him on the negative, you're labeling him as this person when really he's just in that difficult time in his life where he's just trying to figure out who he is. What am I going to do? Am I going to go on a mission if he's LDS? Am I going to go to college? I don't know. And so I think one thing more than anything, and Tiffany just really brought it out into my mind, is the mood log is so effective in counseling in a open forum, like that. I thought that was really good. Are you guys okay if we just kind of focus on each individual and your thoughts about each person? Is that okay?
Make it really quick?
Go ahead.
It was really interesting to see the application of, even though he obviously didn't have them filling out physical mood logs, just was kind of gauging their responses and helping them to go through basically the steps of the mood log. That was really helpful for me because I had a really hard time with the mood logs. My major has nothing to do with this. This is actually just a random class that I ended up taking, and it's been really interesting for me. But I didn't really maybe have a lot of context for it, and I really struggled with the mood logs. They were really weird to me. So it was really good for me in this to watch that and see how that can be applied and really make a difference in a situation, I guess.
What was really weird to you, Melanie? Because I couldn't quite hear you.
The mood logs.
Okay. You found when we did the mood log that was weird, or the?
I had a hard time with it. Like, it felt really artificial to me because we were supposed to come up with these things, So it was really beneficial to me to see in this counseling session how this counselor actually utilized that and helped the family to kind of go through those same steps and to help them to change their thinking to be more positive.
Yeah, find the negative thinking. All right. Well, does anybody have anything to say, and then we can move on. I think we have. What was your thoughts or your take on the mom?
I think she's I don't know that many moms would react much different from that. It's like I loved when he used the example of the mama bear, because I say that all the time. I mean, my kids are still little. I have 8-year-old twins and a 12-year-old, and I mean, if I feel like anybody is harming them or that they're in any kind of trouble, I'm super passive, but this mama bear comes out that I don't even recognize in myself. And I tell my kids that all the time. Like, you know, sometimes their friends think I'm mean or whatever, and I'll say that's just the protective mama bear, you know. And so I think him using that example with her too helped her kids understand, like, they're her babies, and there's nothing she's going to not do to protect them. And I do think it sounds like she probably goes from 0 to 60 a little too fast, that she loses her temper or her emotions get control of her a little too fast, and maybe she doesn't express enough how much she loves her son to him. You know, she just yells at him instead of, you know, trying to maybe show that she actually loves him more. But I don't know that I can really blame her. I'm terrified for my kids to be teenagers. That's all. And so I can, you know, my heart goes out to her, because I think that's really difficult for a mother to watch.
Yeah, I have my oldest is 23. I just became a grandma last month, and
Congratulations.
um, and you know, one thing that I have learned with raising teenagers is how important it is to have that good, open relationship while they're young. I think if you have that open, trusting relationship with them, and they feel safe with you, you can continue that relationship on. And another thing that I've kind of learned with as a mom, and because we're focusing on motherhood, is, or the mother in the group, is to, what I've done with my kids. I've always, and I wonder if she did this too, I don't know, but I always hope the best for them when I talk to them. Like, I always build them up. I recognize where they are, but in my mind, I know their potential, you know, and I always had that the foremost of my mind, because I think children are what you think of them. Like this mother, she's thinking negatively of him, and that is a normal thing. That is normal, but that's not going to be helpful. As you can see with, it's not helpful in the marriage, and it's not helpful with her son. And it is normal to feel that way. But I loved how the father kind of approached it, because he said, look, I trust my son. I know he's a good young man. So
Mm-hmm.
that kind of says to Jimmy, okay, you know, I need to live up to this expectation because my father has great faith and trust in me. Does that mean that Jimmy's going to slip? He's going to slip, because we all slip. But he knows that he can always, if there's a problem, look at this. If there's a problem, who's he going to go to?
Right.
Jimmy or his mom? He's going to go to his dad, because his dad had the high, he sees the greatness in his son, but knowing that he's normal too. You know, he's a little bit more, I don't know. How about you, Emily or Melanie? Do you guys have any comments?
Yeah, I thought it was great. Kind of like what, just going along with what the both of you have said about like the mama bear. I thought it was great that he kind of pointed out that she and the sister were acting very much like female would. That our brains, we want to verbalize things, and that the father and the son, you know, were acting more where they want to kind of stonewall, and they want to, you know, which I thought maybe is possibly why the father was away so much, is trying to just kind of get out of the situation, just withdrawing. So I thought that was interesting that he put that both up and just made them validate, kind of like, this is probably why you're feeling this way, and that's okay, but let's work on it.
Well, and he kind of did that. He said we're all. That's a natural response. Even I like how he said, even I do that in my own family. That's what he trying to help them. I think that's one of the things in our reading, help them know that you understand and that these are natural feelings. Let's just work at it. How about you, Melanie?
Yeah, I was going to say, with it being a natural thing, I think that that's something that it's really easy when you're going through something to think that you're overreacting or being crazy or something. So I think he, as the counselor, did a really good job of, like, hey, you all have valid concerns. These are normal things to be dealing with, and you shouldn't feel weird about it. I have this problem too. Like, because I think it can be in a situation where you're seeing a counselor, it's possible that you could be like, oh, well, this counselor doesn't have these problems. He's not really going to understand. He's just judging me or whatever. So I think it was really good that he made sure to bring in his experience so that they didn't have to feel like they were a bad family or something.
Right.
Yeah, I noticed that he never, like the husband said that the wife was crazy a couple times, but he never like repeated that back. He would say she was acting out of character, you know. And I thought, oh, that was really good to not repeat. So you think she's crazy?
His language was very, yeah, that's what I mean. He reframed. He reframed it to, yeah, he did. I actually wrote that down on my paper because I'm like, I like that, you know. You're out of character, and that's kind of helped her husband see that that's not her. She's just out of character. What are your thoughts about the father? We kind of mentioned some of him, but what are some things that, in what we've read, do you see with him?
I think that the two of them probably, you know, they're a little bit different, and he's more relaxed about it, and she's more high stress. It's probably, if they can work it out and communicate, I think they'll be a great dynamic for the family. I just think that they, you know, coming together on that will help. Whether pitting each other kind of against each other with it and kind of siding with the children, it will be better when they can. I think that they have those good strengths, but when they make them their strengths, it'll help.
I think that the dad, he had his concerns and everything, but it seems like maybe they weren't communicating super well, and maybe the counseling will help him to feel better about being more open and communicating more effectively with each of his family members.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think too, he, you know, sometimes when one spouse or whatever, you know, freaks out or gets over emotional, he probably doesn't even know, you know, who he's supposed to be helping, her or the son. And also, he mentioned that he grew up without any kind of intervention. You know, like he grew up in a bad situation, and I mean that just briefly got mentioned, but it speaks a lot about who he is, I think. And so, in his mind, he thinks he's just being a kid because that's how he was when he grew up, and he turned out fine. So, I think he probably has a little more confidence in his son because he was able, you know, he understands where he's coming from because he's been there. That's
Yeah, I think what the counselor brought out with the father is that his home life, his parents were more promiscuous. No, not. Is that the right word?
He said absent, like they were just absent, kind of.
Yeah, they were kind of, yeah, not promiscuous. They were against the the parenting style, where the parents were just
permissive.
Yeah, permissive. That's the kind of background that he had. So you have a mother that probably was brought up in a probably very strict home life with the father in this kind of home life, and they just need to kind of come together. And I think given that background, I thought that was interesting how the counselor, instead of saying to the mother, "What's your background?" I think he kind of could guess what her background. He wanted to know what kind of background from the father, because I think because the son is emulating his father. He's reacting to the way his father is reacting. But like you kind of both mentioned, you know, girls are one way and boys are another way. He needed to know the father. So I think working with the father and helping him will be helpful. I think he also pointed out, the husband even said to his wife, you know, we haven't been going on date nights a lot, you know, so they're not on equal par. And I don't know about you guys, but I think the most important relationship in a marriage is in a family is the marriage. And when husband and wives are off, the kids can feel that, you know, and
For sure.
you know. So, anybody else want to say anything about the father that you? I think also with the father, I think he is actually. I think if I were the counselor, I'd probably work a lot with the father because he's the one that's really going to help Jimmy. I loved how he told the father, you need to find some time with your son. You were once his age. You probably know what it feels like not to, you know, you got to help him to leave the home and become a man and share your experiences with your son. You need to have that open communication. And I don't know if the father was too excited about the skate part, but, you know, sometimes as parents, you got to go where your kids want to go because then it's going to open more communication, you know?
Mm-hmm. And maybe, I mean, they talked about that they used to go camping together and stuff, and maybe it would be helpful for the dad to make an effort. It doesn't sound like he has a lot of time, but to maybe make an effort to even just go on an overnight camping trip with his son, but to show him like personally that he cares about him and what he likes to do. Because it sounds like that he still likes to camp. He doesn't really anymore.
That he would, yeah.
No, that's a great point. I know when my oldest son was struggling, my husband and him both have football. And I remember one time someone at church got really upset with my husband. He goes, "All you do is talk to your son about about football. You don't, you need to talk more about church." And my husband goes, "Look, you don't understand. My son is struggling right now, and the church is not what he wants to talk about. He goes, I need to keep that open relationship, and the only thing that I can keep connected with him is football. Maybe with his father, that is his thing, is skateboarding and camping. Keep that connection, because then you can then bring in other stuff. But if you've lost that connection, good luck with trying to share anything else." I liked how he was really working on them.
Mm-hmm.
How about the daughter? What were your thoughts about the daughter? Do you think that in some ways she was trying to be a tattletale? Do you think that was her intent, or do you, go ahead.
I think that there was a little bit of both. I mean, I have an older sister, and I think that there are definitely circumstances where you are just concerned about someone, and you want to make sure that they're okay and make sure that the parents are aware that this could be going on, and maybe they can do something to help the older sibling. But on the other hand, I think that sometimes there still is, even when you want to help them and you care about them, there's probably still a little bit of an element of, guess what? Look what they're doing. Like, I think there's still a little bit of a tattletale element.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else?
I think she's playing off her mom's emotions a little bit too. I think that's pretty natural for girls to want to. I kind of like you just said, Melanie. I have an older sister who was awful to my mom when she was a teenager, and I watched that and it bothered me, and so I was always kind of my mom's cheerleader, and I think maybe that's how she feels a little bit, is that she kind of plays into her mom's emotions a little bit. I also think they just moved and they both had their lives shuffled a little bit, and it sounds like they were closer before they moved, and I think there probably is some real feelings of her missing her brother and missing him as her friend and being around more, because it sounds like they were probably quite a bit more closer before they closer before they moved. You know what I mean? So I think there's both. I think she was kind of interesting to me, the daughter, because I think she's kind of caught in the middle of all of it, and it's difficult, especially at her age, to even know how to process what's going on around her.
I agree.
The point where the daughter came off, I mean, she started things out in the family discussion, which was great, that she was able to, put herself out there and get it going. There were points where she came off as a little snotty, but she's like 14 or something. So definitely not out of character, probably. But it was interesting that the counselor did such a good job, I thought, of being able to interpret her snottiness and realize where she was coming from, rather than just being like, well, you're a snotty little child. Like, why are you tattling on your brother? He was able to say, okay, I see that you really care about your brother and want to help him. And I thought that was really well done.
Yeah, I think he stayed very neutral. He didn't really take sides for anybody, and I think he did a great job at staying neutral and not harping too much on one person. The family all were pretty much harping on the brother.
Yeah.
But yeah, he never did at the beginning. But you never saw him harping on the brother.
Right.
Which is kind of interesting.
The therapist, you mean? Never. I know. I felt the same way. Like, it would be easy for him to say, why aren't you getting a job, or why aren't you, but he totally stayed out of that and just kind of helped them work on their relationship rather than on what's going wrong. He worked on what they could do better, what they could do right. And I thought that was great.
So anything about Jim? Is it Jimmy? Any comments about Jimmy? What your thoughts are with that? I know we kind of hit on a little bit, but anything else that you want to add that you observed, which we haven't already?
I think he, well, first of all, I don't know if you have ever watched Saturday's Warriors, but that song just kept coming in my head because, right? Okay. I just thought, how ironic that his name is Jimmy. Anyway, I would like to know more what he was like before they moved. Like, to me, I wonder if he had a good group of friends and they moved, and his whole, if it was I mean, I'm not sure if they ever specified how long ago they had moved. If it was a year or two before that, that's really, really hard to feel, other kids are, it's just hard to make new friends when you're a junior in high school or even a sophomore in high school. And so I think there needs, the parents probably need help being a little more sympathetic towards him about that. I think that's really hard, but I also think he is terrified to grow up. And, he's kind of caught in the middle of this being a child and being an adult, just like the therapist said. And he might require more patience through that process than maybe some of the kids in their neighborhood or ward who are going on missions or going to college or whatever it is. And if they push him, he'll totally rebel. But if they're patient with him, he'll figure it out on his own if they're positive and supportive and, encourage him along the way. Maybe set some, boundaries as to, make him pay for certain things or whatever. Maybe extend his curfew, give him a little bit more freedom so that he can stay out a little bit later but still keep the rules or whatever it is that they can agree on.
That's true, because they were still treating him, the mother mainly, was still trying to keep him home close.
Right.
That they're there, and when they do become adults, they are adults. So you have to look, I mean, I don't know, for us it was kind of I don't know why it was easy for us to just do that, but I know for some people it's really hard to let their kids go.
I know in my family, when my sister, the first summer that she came back from college, I think my mom had a really hard time with the fact that my sister was older and was at least a semi-adult by then, and she kind of tried to impose an early curfew still, and my sister was pretty upset about it and was more likely to rebel that way. So I think in this family situation, taking the time to, even though it's probably difficult for them, taking a step back and saying, okay, even though I don't necessarily agree with all of your choices, you are learning to be on your own. You need to have the opportunity to do that. You're going to make your own mistakes, but recognizing that and trying to take a step back and let him, like you had already said, have maybe a later curfew and let him be a little bit more of an adult slowly, I guess.
Was it in our reading, or I can't remember, I have so many classes, but I'm trying to think. But put yourself in that person's shoes. Remember when you were, was it in this reading or my other reading? Where, not the word shoes, but kind of put yourself in that person's place. Maybe it was my other class.
I'm taking a marriage class, and we've talked about that in the marriage class. Are you taking that marriage class?
Marriage 300.
Yeah.
Put yourself in there.
It's crossed over a lot, though, because you can't help families if their marriage isn't strong. So I think you said that before. I've gotten confused between the two classes many times because they're talking about a lot of the same things, because the parents, they talked about how they used to love to spend time together. He said, I miss when it was just you and me and we could go on date nights. So clearly they had let that go, and that's one thing we talked about in the marriage class is the importance of date nights, and it's that we're doing this whole activity on it. And I really do, I think before they can help their son even, grow into an adult, they really need to be a team and to focus on each other. But kind of like with the dad, he knows what it's like to be in that kid's shoes, and maybe they can try to remember that a little bit more and be more,
But it is my marriage class then. You had to be together because you got to listen to the father's point of view. It all comes down to communication. I think that's the whole premise of that whole counseling, and what we've learned is getting people to communicate what they're really feeling, and sometimes not overreacting. Well, I think I hope that we went over. I tried to, while you guys were talking, I tried to look over some of the main points in our reading. Is there anything else you guys want to go over before we close?
We're doing pretty well with time. We're really close to right about 45 minutes, so I guess we still.
How about resilience then, Melanie? What are some? We talked about resilience, helping our clients build resilient. What are some things that this counselor did to do that with this family?
And I think he did a good job of helping, kind of what we talked about earlier with the sort of verbal mood logs, that he helped them to see the positive and to help remind them how much they care about each other. I think that is going to really help with the cohesion of the family in general and help them to remember that they care and that they want to stay together. And he pointed out the sister early on when she was talking about how her brother was out with these friends that she didn't think were very good and stuff. And the counselor said, "So I see that you really care about your brother." And pointing that out to her is probably, I would think, could be a really pivotal moment, where instead of her just feeling resentful, like, my brother doesn't care about our family, he just wants to be gone all the time, that could make her really resentful and not care about having the family together as much. But where the counselor helped to point out that she was worried about her brother and that she cared about him and wanted him to be around and everything, I think that can help to build resilience in their family, to help her realize, oh yeah, we can do this, we can help him, and our family can be a strong family and want to do stuff together still.
How about towards the end when he asked the question, what did you get from this counseling session? What was your take on some of the responses? What was he trying to do you think?
I think he was trying to get them to say it themselves, that they, the boy said, "I guess they don't hate me." I mean, as a mom, you would just crumble if you heard your kid say that. But, to make sure that I think he asked them that question to make sure that they had internalized that emotion that he had been repeating through the whole thing. I think he did a good job of giving them like positive, building them up to make them feel like, instead of like, we're so messed up and we have so long to go, that he helped them see like, you're okay, you just have something you need to work through, you still love each other, everything's good. He complimented them from the minute they walked in, thanked them for coming, and recognized that that's not easy. And so I thought that was really good, that he just kind of instilled confidence in them and in the relationship they have with each other.
That's great, Tiffany. How about you, Emily?
Yeah, well, I was thinking too with the resilience. I was wondering if possibly they didn't, I don't know, where if it's possibly just the move that they're struggling so much, if maybe there wasn't a ton of resilience built up, and so they kind of go through this struggle with their family of the move, and it's trickled down so much, or if possibly it's just not this, they're not as open, and so possibly that's why he was trying to get them to practice being open, just like you were talking about.
That's great. And how about you, Melanie? Well, you already did. Okay, well, I think over time, go ahead. What, Emily?
How are we with time?
So we are at like 44 minutes right now, so we need to transition into the 15-minute discussion about our discussion.
Okay.
Okay, so what I do in my other class is in the advocacy class, we just kind of go around and just kind of, I will start with Emily, then Melanie, Tiffany, and then myself. Just kind of share, and the person that's going to submit the summary, is that you, Tiffany?
Right, I thought you were.
Oh, I decided to conduct instead, so I didn't know if you guys would be willing to do the summary.
Hold on.
Or
I can't. I mean, I don't know if somebody.
I said I was going to, and I thought, well, I'll just conduct this and then have somebody else have the summary. But basically, just go around and just share something that you learned from today's discussion, and then we can just kind of put that down in our summary, and we can submit it to the teacher. So is that okay, Tiffany?
Yeah.
Hope you still love me after this. Emily, can you go first and then just tell us what you learned from today's discussion, and then Melanie?
Yeah, it helped me to be able to talk things out, I think, to be able to kind of see other people's perspective. It helped to, I feel like I'm rehashing the same thing. It helped to, basically to see other people's perspective, to talk, to kind of see how we viewed the exact same thing, and just different people's take on it, and see, I think a lot of things we agreed on, but some of the points you guys brought up I hadn't really thought about, and so that helped.
Okay.
I definitely agree. It feels a little weird. A lot of the stuff in this class has been kind of interesting in that it feels a little redundant sometimes. Like within an assignment, it feels like we do the same thing. Like in a case study, we'll do the same thing at the beginning and at the end. And I'm like, okay, but So that's something I'm learning to work on, feeling like it's redundant, but redundancy isn't necessarily a bad thing. It was interesting to, like you said, Emily, to kind of get everyone else's perspective, because as an individual, we obviously have our own bias and perspective on everything, so it's really helpful and interesting to learn about what everyone else saw in a situation. Like with this family, you all pointed out different things that I hadn't really noticed or thought of, and it was also just as even as I was talking about things that I had noticed, I felt like I made more connections and had a better understanding of really even just the principles that I've already been learning just from verbalizing them.
Okay.
So, from this activity I think it's helpful to see that, what other people see in the same situation I do, things that maybe I miss or that I don't notice, because then the next time I watch, I'll probably pay attention to something different. But for the summary that I'm going to write to send to the teacher, is that what I'm supposed to write, is what we learned, or aren't I supposed to summarize like the 45 minutes?
It's a combination of both. We're kind of doing it right now.
So in the summary, though, I think that I write out for the teacher, what's important is that I'm going to go over the points that we talked about. I'm probably not in the same order you brought them up because I didn't take notes while we were talking, but just that the therapist did a good job of restating things, and I don't know how much of this you want me to go over. I'll use the notes I took while I watched the video, but that he talked about their history and was sympathetic towards where they were coming from. He never made them feel bad or that they had done something wrong. He never criticized Jimmy. He built up the positives that he could find, which was that they love each other and care about each other. He used respectful language, and he did a very good job of reframing and relabeling what they said so that it diffused any bad feelings that they had or that could have come up from what they were saying to each other. He normalized the things that they said. He made sure they understood that the things they were going through were very normal, that he and his own family had some of the same experiences, and that they shouldn't feel awkward or weird or that they were failing about that he complimented them on being there and being willing to share. He clarified everything that they said. He said things in his own words. He didn't just repeat what they said, but kind of re-spoke what they said in his own words so that he made sure he was understanding them. Let's see. Okay, so he found something positive to say about every single member of the family. He, at some point in the conversation, he made sure he complimented and uplifted each member of the family. And again, reiterated all throughout it how much they love and care about each other. He gave them each a chance to talk about how they felt, like as far as the mom yelling too much, how it bothered all of them that the son was out so late, that they were all worried about him, and pointed out that that's because they love him, not because they hate him, which was important for the boy to understand. He encouraged them to spend time together, both as a family and individually in groups, like for the father and the son to spend time together, the daughter and the son to spend time together, the parents to go on date night. He restated their criticisms into positives. So when she complained about his friends, like we talked about, he said, well, you must really care about him. And he instilled hope in them. He encouraged them, told them he knew it was a tough situation, but that it was natural and that they could work on it. Okay, anything else? Am I forgetting any?
No. Have you taken Family 460 advocacy class?
No.
So really, yeah, kind of what you did, you just kind of give a summary of how the discussion went, and you can put bullet points in that you put in.
Okay. I can just do like bullet points.
Yeah,
okay.
Or just one paragraph of. It's not.
Okay, so it doesn't need to be that detailed.
No, okay. But I love your detail. My goodness, I'm sitting here thinking,
better to do more than less, right? Okay. And then I'll just put what everybody thought about it. Okay.
This
So,
video,
and if you,
watch the video. So she's going to see all those things that we talked. She just kind of wants to get a summary of our take on our discussion.
Okay.
and then,
Okay, got it.
and Tiffany, if you want to send it to me, I can submit it and the link for this at the same time. It
Okay.
looks like that's what we're supposed to do, so I can just submit it at the same time. And if you want, I can, I don't know, if you feel comfortable with what you have for the summary, I don't want you to feel like you're stuck with it. But if you wanted to create a Google Doc and you want other people to contribute, we can definitely do that too. Or if
I'll just email it to you because I'm not very good with this technology, so Google Docs could like put me right over the edge. So I've never done that before, so I'll just do it. If it's not, if you're okay with me just doing a few bullet points and then what you
I get you.
I did it last time we did this too, and I wrote like 2 pages worth, and the teacher was, that was very detailed. So I get it.
bullet points in a little paragraph would be perfect.
Okay, good.
Paragraph, all you need to do of kind of what we learned from our own discussion about the concept.
Right. That makes sense.
Something that I kind of learned that is kind of way off on what we talked about is after I watched the counseling session, I kind of thought that the counselor talked way too much. That was my first take. And I thought he used a lot of hand signal. And the only reason why I say this is because my husband says, stop pointing at people when you talk to them. But I'm watching the counselor, and that's what he's doing. He's pointing. And I sat there and I thought, okay, I've gone to personal counseling before, and my counselor never really talked that much. He allowed me to do the talking. So why is this counselor talking all the time? I felt kind of like, because whenever he would ask, this is okay, this is horrible, but this is just me talking openly. I kind of wonder, was he putting words in people's mouths? Was he putting words in Jimmy's mouth? Because sometimes Jimmy would say, I think so. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But then I sat there and I thought, okay, this is not a personal one-on-one counseling session. This is a family counseling session, which I've never attended a family counseling session before. So it was really fun for me to watch the counselor. I was more fascinated by him because I think he was setting the foundation or the groundwork for where he wanted to go from there. Because I think he first needed to get people on the right page of thinking. I think that's what his whole purpose of was to get people on the right way of thinking. And then from there, he could then go then do the one-on-one, if he had to, one-on-one counseling session where he can then listen to them and find out, kind of go a little bit deeper. So I was kind of more, I know using all these processes, but I was more intrigued by that. And I liked when he kind of rolled up his sleeves, because in a way he was saying, I'm ready to get to work. Are you guys ready to get to work? I'm actively listening to what you're saying. Therefore, I want you to actively listen to what each person is saying. And I just kind of like, at first I really struggled with the approach, but then I started understanding he's laying the foundation and the groundwork for this family. Because I sat there and thought, in all of our case studies, why are they such, I shouldn't say they're easy case studies, but I'm like, okay, nobody's going crazy in these case studies. Because a lot of people, when I think of going to counseling, they're crazy. I shouldn't say crazy, but the one time I went to counseling, and I realized a good counselor, just like what he did, is going to take a chaos situation and just kind of lay the framework of correct thinking. And then he can go from there. And that's kind of what I gathered from our discussion. It's kind of what I gathered from the whole counseling session, is not all counselors are that way. And I think you got to find a counselor that believes that's not going to kind of keep you there forever, but that really wants to have an end result. And once I started thinking about that, I loved it, because you can take any crazy home life situation. Like that counseling session could have gone really down, really bad if you did not have the right counselor and use the approaches that he approached. It could not have been a good one.
Mhm.
But he, using the things that we learned, is so valuable to have a great experience. See, I think these kids in the future, if they ever have a problem, I think they'll go to counseling, you know, because it was such a positive experience. And I think that's what you want a counselor to do, is bring out a positive experience of counseling. Because everybody needs counseling. Whether we agree with it or not, everybody needs help. Um, I don't know. That's kind of that was my take on the whole discussion and everything.
And with, I just, as you were talking, something that I thought of, I think that I've never been to family counseling or even individual counseling really, but the approach that the counselor took, where he did talk a lot, that family, part of their problem was communication, and so he was really, one of his main jobs with that counseling session was to facilitate communication with that family, to make sure that they could get on the same page and remember that they wanted to be together and cared about each other and everything. So he definitely needed to talk a lot to get them going to remember that they needed to communicate more effectively, maybe.
But he got them to think positive so that when they had the one-on-one session, he could say, well, do you remember your mother? She was really worried. She wasn't angry. She was really worried. You know, he laid the groundwork of the whole thing in that one session. And what could have gone bad, because I think a good counselor could take any messed up situation and I think with the right tools, give that family the right tools, which are the tools that he taught, can make anything really good, I think, over time. All right, well, are we done?
Yeah, Emily, what's your last name?
Buffington, Buffington.
Okay, and then Melanie, I'm sure I have it, but what's your email address?
You can send it to my BYUI one.
Okay.
JEN01014@byui.edu.
Okay.
And then I typed my name on the side.
Okay, you said J is in jump, right? E-N?
Yes.
Like Jen, like your main name. Okay, I got it. All right. Yeah, we're good.
Okay, and once you send me the summary, then I will go ahead and send the link and the summary to the teacher, and we'll be good to go.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone. Thanks, Tiffany. Okay, bye.
No problem.